This November, Kentuckians will vote on a proposed constitutional amendment for it to explicitly state that non-citizens cannot vote in elections. This week, a committee of lawmakers met with multiple state agencies to discuss how they handle undocumented immigrants in Kentucky, including the Secretary of State and Board of Elections. Secretary Michael Adams says that non-citizens are already explicitly not permitted to vote under federal law, and that Kentucky's Constitution implies but does not outright state the same.
During my tenure in office, I have seen no evidence that non-citizens have voted or attempted to vote in our elections. But that does not mean we should not be concerned about this issue and fail to take proper precautionary measures.
Now, in that same meeting, Kentucky State Police and state prosecutors also discussed how there is currently little to no infrastructure to track undocumented people coming into the country with arrest records or a defined process to notify federal immigration authorities during arrest. We heard from several different agencies here. Senator Chambers Armstrong, I'm going to begin with you here. Is there a case to be made for why this amendment is on the ballot?
So I think everyone agrees that people who do not have citizenship status shouldn't be voting in Kentucky elections. And that's why our Constitution already says that. It already says that you have to have citizenship in order to be eligible to vote. And so that is currently the law. I don't think we need this amendment. I worry that this amendment is an attempt to scare people, make people believe that there is some sort of problem. When this week in committee, we clearly heard it's not happening. In fact, we heard testimony that people aren't even trying for it to happen, that there hasn't been any documented attempt of any person who doesn't have citizenship status even trying to register to vote. Additionally, we heard testimony from our elections experts saying that we have all kinds of systems in place to make sure that Kentucky state elections are for people who have United States citizenship.
Representative Moser, I believe you were on this committee, right? What were some takeaways you had?
Yeah, so I think that this is simply a way to clarify the law. We have the federal provision that was put in place in 1996 that explicitly says that a non-citizen cannot vote in a federal election or a federal race. And we just need to clarify that on a state level, the same will apply to non-citizens. I think it's a way to try to build trust, regain trust in our electoral process. There are questions out there, and if this helps clarify the issue for people, I don't see that there's any problem with it. As Cassie said, we all kind of agree that non-citizens don't have the right to vote in the U.S. and certainly in Kentucky. I guess that's the same.
Do you think there's more to do on election security specifically? For example, in that same committee, Adams recommended perhaps cross-referencing DMV records with voter rolls for any legal immigrants who accidentally registered to vote, things like that.
Do I think that that's a good idea? You know, if we can find a way to simplify the process and make sure that that our laws are strengthened, absolutely. If cross-referencing our known documents, our current documentation, will help, I think that, you know, absolutely. Let's do everything that we can to make sure that non-citizens are following the law.
And I guess what concerns me is that all of the evidence is that they are. And so by spending time talking about this, of course, I'm for anything to make our elections secure, and I actually think our Secretary of State has done a really good job about building confidence in our electoral system. But when we spend time talking about these problems that aren't real problems, again, there has not been any documented attempt by anyone without citizenship status to vote. They couldn't come up with one single time that has happened. We're not talking about the other real problems in Kentucky. In our last segment, we were talking about 1 out of 5 Kentucky kids living in poverty. We have very limited time together as lawmakers. Let's spend our time focused on that, on the great omnibus legislation that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. Let's not spend time creating problems that really just scare people whenever they're not problems that actually exist in the world.
About 20 more seconds if you have the last word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm not in favor of scaring folks, certainly, but I think that if we can clarify the law and just make sure that everyone understands what it is. We do have more and more refugees coming to Kentucky, so it's not a non-issue. I think that it's important that we are taking some preventative measures and strengthening our election laws.
All right, thank you, Representative. We'll have to leave it there.